Welcome to Why It's So Bright at Night. I'm your host, Bill McGeeney. Why It's So Bright at Night is a periodic show that I do whenever I come across an interesting topic or news article that I really want to dive into. You can find all the helpful links, show notes. You can find even a whole dedicated tab of the current research of the ecological impacts of light pollution over on our website at lightpollutionnews.com. But let's get started today with Why It's So Bright at Night, featuring Art Hushin, a returning guest. I wanted to reach out to a recent guest, Art Hushin, to really help me understand something that I came across a couple months back. It's called the hashtag 9 p.m. routine. For you who may not be familiar with the 9 p.m. routine campaign, it's a well-meaning campaign by law enforcement across the U.S. and Canada that tries to remind people into doing kind of common sense things, or at least what they consider common sense practices, to reduce property theft and burglaries and break-ins. Art, you're a 30-year law enforcement veteran who started the educational program, the National Institute of Crime Prevention. You promote crime reduction through environmental design, and listeners will find Art on two of our shows back in March, the Gateway Topics and Follow Where the Others Are Going. Do I have that all correct, Art?
You've got it all correct. That's perfect.
Well, I want to talk about this 9 p.m. routine. I dove down this rabbit hole after seeing local news article mention the 9 p.m. routine. Lore has it that it began actually in your fair state down in Florida. A police department set it up back in 2017. And there's subtle variants of it across the messaging platforms and over time. But the gist is pretty much this, that law enforcement is instructing folks to remember every night at 9 p.m. to remove all valuables from your car, to lock up your pretty much any way anyone can get into your property, be it cars, houses, sheds, garages, etc., and to leave exterior lights, security cameras, and alarm systems on all night. So obviously, light pollution news. This is the last item is the one I have questions about. However, before we get there, maybe you can give us kind of a rundown on why law enforcement is settled on these three pieces of advice.
Well, first of all, thanks for letting me talk to you about this. I'm always excited to see what they're doing and what law enforcement is promoting. And just like you, that 9 p.m. making sure the lights are on, that's the tough one. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to help people develop a routine where they know nightly we'll take these steps, we'll make sure everything's locked away or put up, because we can go back and take a look at all those home videos that people have in their driveways of just people casually walking down the street, walking up, trying a door handle and seeing if it's open or not, and looking inside to see if there's anything inside. So that part I understand. Put your stuff away, lock it up, make sure it's secure, set your alarm. It's a nice routine to get into. The tough one is the lighting, though. And again, law enforcement trying to help the public. Let's get into this cycle. Let's do this regularly, and that's going to drop some of those break-ins, which you all want to see. And now offenders know coming to the neighborhood that there's not going to be anything left in the cars anymore. So I'm not even going to go to even try to go into that neighborhood, let alone deal with the cameras or the alarms or the lighting. But just that routine by itself might be enough to deter that type of activity or behavior.
I mean, the face of it, right? I mean, I'm
Oh
always
yeah.
someone who takes everything out of my car, right? Live in a major city. You get conditioned not to leave anything in your car, make sure everything's locked up. So on that last piece for the exterior lights, I mean, I get the security system. Cameras are phenomenal these days. You don't
Oh
really
yeah.
need, like they're really good at detecting things, and you have motion sensing lights that, can come on and record videos and all this, do a lot of amazing stuff where you don't necessarily need exterior lights on all the time.
Right.
I guess if I can I prod you a little more on that?
Oh yeah.
Does is when they say keep the exterior lights on, is that because 9 times out of 10 the light deters crime, or is it because they want to show that someone's home? Like, what is the thinking behind the exterior lights
Boy,
piece?
that's a good one because working with the different agencies, uh, some of the mindset is that if you leave your lights on, that's going to serve as a crime deterrent. Like that's part of your alarm system. You got that light on, people know, well, you're protecting your property because you've illuminated it. And that's just that old world that we see, but we still have break-ins at nighttime with lights on. We still have them getting into cars with lights on. So it's just this mindset, and the public is looking for guidance. They really do, and they look to law enforcement to say, "Here's what you should do." And if you want to leave your light on, yeah, then we get into the dark sky component and then just wasting that energy. I'd love to see if they switch to motion. I'd love to have classes on shielding and have police tell them in that statement, leave exterior lights on that are shielded, that it might be on a timer, that might be motion activated, facing your vehicle. So again, they're specific to what they want to do, but that's a lot of thought process that goes into that. And when they only have maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get to the public, it's easier for me to rhyme this: remove your stuff, set your alarm, turn your lights on. That is so easy. That is so easy. The public can remember that. But when you get into, well, your lights should be this and that, and you should have this with that as well and do that, now it's a little harder. People are like, you know what? I'm just going to leave my lights on. I don't need to hear this other stuff because I've learned if I leave my lights on, that lets criminals know that, hey, I'm taking care of my property, I'm taking care of my space.
I think as dark sky advocates is one of the more disheartening things in that I understand what law enforcement's trying to do, and I get it. They want to, like you mentioned, they want to have something quick and digestible out to the public, so that way they can minimize the propensity of having these crimes pop up. I think it's really disheartening on the dark sky side because what it's doing inadvertently is perpetuating this idea that light actually prevents crime, and I don't necessarily believe that. I think the data goes both ways on that. Is there something you will want to talk about regarding light and its correlation with crime?
Yeah, we've seen that too, and especially now, and I'm just going to just focus on typical neighborhood crime. Just in the neighborhood, you got 300 houses there. Everybody kind of knows each other. A lot of times it's kids in the neighborhood that might be committing these break-ins. So they know, and what do you see them wearing now? They throw on, again, I'm not trying to stereotype in any way, but they put on that hoodie, they put that hat down low, make sure everything's covered up because all the lights and the cameras are on. So they know they're being recorded. And so they'll walk into that even with those floodlights. And I've seen it on my cameras at my home too. Even no matter what light is on, they're still going to go up and try the door because it's 3 in the morning. There's not a lot going on. And they know if I put this on, even though they might get a picture in the color of what I'm wearing, they still won't see my face. And so does that light serve as a deterrence? Do these alarms serve as a deterrence? No, it's just that there's an opportunity. There's something of value in that car because I know at least 50% of people in the neighborhood don't clean their car at night. They don't put the stuff away. They don't lock it up. And I've seen them break into cars for lighters and cigarettes and change in the cup holder. For them, it's no big deal to do that. But lighting, I do love again, if we just go into that motion activated lighting, if we go into, I don't need to light the street. I just need, if I'm going to light, I'm going to light where my car is parked. Just keep it simple. But how do you get that to the public?
Yeah, so I guess the recommendation is if I'm a listener here, or if I'm watching this and I want to be able to follow this 9 p.m. routine, what would the recommendation you have for the individual at home? What is the best practice you would think for that third piece that obviously, turn on your security system? I think that goes without saying, but what would your suggestion, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I get into that security system. I'd also get into the routine of just taking the stuff out of your car. Just remove even your garage door opener. People still use it. You break in, you hit the button, and all of a sudden the garage door opens. A lot of people don't alarm their garage. They alarm the interior door for the garage. So now you got full access to the garage. So you can pull in things out of there if that offender wants to go that far. Adding that, those two little ones, the lighting, I go back to, I'm a big fan of motion activated lighting, especially in the driveway. And that's going to put a little more fear in that person because now all of a sudden the light comes on. You'd be shocked to see how many, when that light does turn on, that face, even with that cover, looks up right away like, oh, and it's just like, I'm out of here. Did they really see me? So that puts that extra doubt. So again, I love the lighting, but let's control it. Let's go with that motion activation. If you have the technology to hook it up to your camera system, so again, that kicks that camera system off directly, that's even better. And it's getting pretty inexpensive, all the different alarm companies, the things they can give to you. But yeah, if you just follow that, clean your car out, don't leave anything there, remove that garage door opener if you don't have your garage door alarmed exterior, then maybe set that system for that light to activate under motion.
Yeah, and I know what we use is relatively cheap cameras. You can get
Oh yeah.
online and you just buy the SD card and you control the data, and then you can create alarms if it sees activity in certain hours, and in that way, it kind of does more than any standard floodlight would be able to do.
Right. And because you're a responsible homeowner, you understand these are the tools I need to have. But most people, lifestyle today, it's very quick, very we got to go, got to go. Can I get this alarm system or camera system at, I'm again not plugging store at Costco or Sam's Club and hook it up myself? Hey, and now I'm capturing these images, I'm good to go. But take that extra step, like you said, look at the technology, look at the ways to use it to your advantage, and that helps law enforcement every time. Someone has a good camera system, knows how to use it, evidentiary, again, that's going to help them a lot. But most people like, was I supposed to store this images? Was I supposed to keep it? Didn't come on the instructions. So again, that's that disconnect that we're trying to fix.
Yeah, and I think you have to also own some of that data. So if you can get the SD card to purchase
Oh yeah.
that, then you have that data on your end. You don't have to pay someone to access your data. Yeah, and I like, before we go, the motion sensing thing always made more sense to me because it's a stimulus. And I think people, us, just humans, and naturally, stimuli is kind of what drives us to change our actions.
Yeah.
And when you have that sudden, flash of light, and say if there's a recording video going at the same time, some kind of deterrent that is a direct and obvious deterrent versus a always on light. I think someone can look at a place and just notice that light's always on after seeing it for a couple nights and realize, all right, well, that's just the way it is. So, I shouldn't have to worry about that.
No, I agree with you too on that as well. And the other thing I'd like to recommend for people as well, you've got these streetcar garages, but you've got two stalls that are stored with boxes. So you're parking your cars outside. So again, and that, again, you just remove that from the site. I know it's a pain to put all the boxes away and everything, but once you get those cars in there, it's just this overall feeling of safety. You got it, so let's kind of work around it. Let's make the police job easier for them. So now we don't have all these targets out, and if we can't do that, then we get into let's use technology a little better.
That's a great suggestion. Well, great. Thank you, Art. Always insightful thoughts as I've come to note, and greatly appreciate your time today. So thank you again for coming on. If you wish to learn more about what we do at Light Pollution News, feel free to jump over to the website, lightpollutionnews.com, whereby you'll find helpful tips or bi-monthly episode links, narratives, and a page where it documents all of the research in ecology related news on light pollution. And feel free to also reach out to us over on social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and you can listen to the show wherever you find podcasts. So be sure to subscribe today. Thank you once more. I'm your host, Bill McGeeney, reminding you to only shine a light where it's needed.